Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Rob Belk. I'm one of the co-presidents of the Media, Entertainment, and Sports Club. I just want to give you a quick introduction about myself. So I'm originally from Charlotte, North Carolina. I went to UVA for my undergrad and spent about 5 years in New York working in consulting. Part of the reason why I came to Duke was to transition into the sports business industry. And this past summer, I was at the NFL up at the league office in New York, and I'm planning to go back when I graduate.
Hi, I am Tanya Sar. Graduated from the University of Texas at Austin in 2011 and worked in media at various advertising agencies for about 6 years prior to coming to Fuqua. Had the opportunity to work on gaming accounts such as Activision, Call of Duty, and GameStop, which piqued my interest in sports from a business side. So wanted to come to Fuqua, which from our conversations with current students at the time a couple years ago, had a great sports program through the MES Club, and happy to say that I think we're continuing that legacy and only making it stronger. So we wanted to kind of go over the purpose of the club overall. So the Media, Entertainment, and Sports Club serves three industries: media, entertainment, and sports. And within those, we have music, various entertainment properties. We even have a few cohorts that really cater to these industries, such as the music, media, and entertainment cohort, the gaming and esports cohort, and the Fuqua Sports Business cohort that Rob actually launched last year. We serve as a professional club, and we do everything we can for the students in helping them get the careers of their choice.
Great, yeah. And just a quick reminder, if you do have any questions for Tanya or myself, please feel free to go ahead and submit those. We'll be able to see those pop up, and we'll try to take those as they come. I'll speak a little bit about our club engagement within the Fuqua community. So we are a professional club. The goal of the club is to help students get jobs within the industry. And so, given that goal, we work closely with the Career Management Center. We've got actually an assigned career management person, Laura Lane. She's great. She helps us think through, how do we interact with different companies? How do we get people on campus? How do we set up some unique events and ultimately make our students and our club members more attractive for these companies? Additionally, we do a week in cities trip. We've actually done multiple, a lot of that through Tanya's leadership. So the big trip we do every year is up to New York. That happens over fall break, and we'll visit various companies within sports and media. And a lot of these are companies where we have some pre-established relationships or even some alumni there. This past year, we went to Major League Soccer, the NFL, Spotify, Google, Madison Square Garden, and
MLB?
MLB, and a couple others up there. So, a lot of good relationships, a lot of really interesting companies. And I think it's a really valuable trip, especially for the first years, to really get up there and hear more about what these companies do, get a little bit better sense for the culture there. Additionally, we do have a lot of speakers that come through. So this year we launched a speaker series. It's called Career Messages, a play on word with the MES for messages. And we've really tried to bring what we think are interesting and unique speakers to school. We've moved away from more of the panels and the big, one conference with a ton of different speakers. We just felt that it would be more engaging for our students, and we could get, more one-on-one interaction if we actually hone in on one specific speaker. So I'm proud to say we've actually had two so far this year. We had Christy Nelson. She came down. She's a CEO and runs several different sports franchises, and she spoke to several of our students. Really talked about what it's like starting a team, even starting a new league, as well as being a woman in the industry. And then Tanya helped bring in probably our biggest name, Shane Battier, a couple weeks ago, which was great with the start of college basketball. And that was a really unique experience. We actually had a club member sit on stage, probably in front of 300 people, and do a fireside chat. And Shane was just really authentic and genuine, and it was just such a really, such a great event. And I think really speaks volumes about, the alumni and the caliber of people that this club brings to school to speak to us. And then lastly, I'd just talk a little bit about conferences in general, and Tanya can probably helped me out with this, but the MIT Sloan Conference, that is really the premier sports business conference, especially for MBAs and even for working professionals. And so we did have several students go up there last year and participate and did some really unique things I think Tanya could probably speak to, given your involvement.
Definitely. We actually had 3 club students participate in the case competition and competing against various schools, business schools in the country. Fuqua actually came out second, and we actually had a club member that received an internship with the Denver Broncos through that case competition and getting second from it. So again, it just shows the caliber of the Fuqua sports interested students here and what we can accomplish as a club going to these conferences. We were actually also able to host a happy hour there where we did have great Fuqua alum come on board. We had the assistant GM of, I believe it was the Sacramento Kings. We had Shane Battier come through and a couple of other people, one that works with the San Antonio Spurs in analytics and another that works in strategy with the Chicago Bulls. So it was a great time. We plan on going again this year as well.
Awesome. And I see we did have a question come through. So it was asking about, for film and television professionals, what makes Fuqua stand apart? So given the club's edict, and the different focuses, so media and entertainment is still a big part of the club. Tanya and I, just based on our interests, are more of the sports side, but we do partner specifically with Demon, which is an organization at Duke.
Duke Entertainment Media and Arts Network.
Yep, exactly. And they have a lot of great relationships, both locally and nationally, and even globally, and ways to get students really plugged in. I think there's a lot of really unique opportunities based on what you're passionate about to get plugged in. Like, we actually have one student who started a podcast for our club this year, was able to work with the local station. And I think there's a couple really unique opportunities there. We are starting the media and entertainment cohort this year too. So that's catering to more of the students that are interested in those areas and bringing in speakers that are more specific, to television and media.
Yeah, so actually one of our upcoming career messages speakers is an executive at NBC Universal, and that's going to come up in the next few weeks. We actually also have our first music, media, and entertainment cohort meeting tomorrow. It's our launch event, and we have someone from Reverberation. I probably mispronounced that, but Fuqua alum that started that company out here in the Raleigh-Durham area, and he is going to be speaking to the club tomorrow as well. And in addition, Demon is a huge partner of ours. They host what we call Guac and Talks, where they bring in Guac and Talks and Demon Donuts, where they bring in different Duke alum that are in the industry to come out and chat with students. I think it was end of October, they also hosted Demon Weekend, which they've been doing for quite a few years now. And it was a great opportunity for MES to actually host a happy hour for alumni. And they had a ton of great panels, tons of people from various film and music talent agencies and companies that were able to speak to the students and even connect one-on-one. So that was a really great opportunity as well. If there aren't any other questions on that, we can talk about the recruitment season, the recruitment cycle. So sports, media, and entertainment is so great and so vast that you can go about it entering different functions. A lot of people also go the consulting route where they want to work for music, media, and entertainment, and even sports through consulting. So the consulting cycle is a typical business school recruiting cycle where you start doing your resume drops right around this time, and you do your interviews in January and land your internship probably around February and have to respond back to the companies around March. As for sports and media and entertainment that are more traditional, like the leagues and sports teams as well, it's very much just in time. So I actually interned at Nike, and they had a late season as well. So I didn't have my interview until about early March and received my offer within a week. So had to accept by end of spring break, which was about mid-March. So it happened really quickly in just a few weeks. Anything to add to that, Rob?
Yeah, I think, most people, when they think about business school, they think about the traditional roles in consulting and banking, and this is more of a unique and niche role. It does take, a lot of determination, and I think maybe some thinking on your end and some motivation there. I personally like the fact that, you do have a lot of control over what your recruitment looks like. A lot of the onus is on you to figure out, what you're interested and what type of companies and roles may fit that interest. Luckily, we do have a lot of strong support institutionally from the Career Management Center. So, there's walk-up hours, and then you also are able to schedule specific meetings with career counselors, and they can really help you think through, how you want to approach recruiting, where you want to spend most of your time. I think you do have the luxury of spending a lot of the beginning of school, specifically in the fall, thinking through that, going to a lot of different company presentations to see what really might work for you, and then go from there.
This year, we also launched, again, with Rob's help, he coined the term career messages, coined the term playbook, which is actually a recruiting training series of sessions, similar to other clubs at Fuqua, where they have these traditional marketing has Mile, consulting has Roadmap, Tech Club has Pipeline, which is a series of training. And Rob coined the term. There are a few club members, first year and second years, that are helping with the training of students in these. And we go over various ways to send out informational emails, how to create your resume, how to network in the industry, how to prep for your interview, and how to negotiate an offer. So those are all great things that we're currently working on, and have a couple more sessions left next year. So that's another great way that we help out with recruiting for media, entertainment, sports folks. And one thing I did want to add, in addition to the New York Weekend Cities trip, we did one in DC, and typically we do one in Los Angeles every year. So I know, Tay, you asked about the television and film folks. So doing the LA Weekend Cities trip is a great way to meet industries out there and network once you start looking into applying for those companies.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think one of the things, just from a recruiting standpoint, that sets Fuqua apart is I've been really blown away, I guess, when I was a first year and now a second year, the support that second years give first years. And I see that in our club a lot. I think, the two of us are super passionate about making Fuqua a place for media, entertainment, and sports. We really want this to be the preeminent school. If that's your interest, then that's synonymous with going to Fuqua. And to that end, I think all the second years really take an interest in getting to know the first years, really helping them and trying to get them into the roles and with the companies that could help pursue making Fuqua, the school for media and entertainment and sports.
Yeah. And one more note around, we were talking about the Career Management Center, and we mentioned Laura Lane. Actually, just the week before Thanksgiving, we did a resume and cover letter review session that Laura Lane hosted up with our club students, and that was a great opportunity to meet her. She has been an awesome supporter, and I know that even for prospects looking to go to Fuqua, she is going to continue to be a great resource for first years and second years moving forward. We're going to talk about club engagement with Fuqua alumni next. I mentioned the happy hour that we did at the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference last year, and we have a ton of great alumni, not only from Fuqua, but also Duke, that play an active role in helping us learn about the industries and continuing to move forward. So Kevin Brilliant of the Chicago Bulls, he actually launched what we call Duke MBB Stats, Duke Men's Basketball Stats Platform. And he launched this, and actually Rob and I were a part of continuing to develop that application and website last year. So that's just one way that Kevin has been involved. Another way he's been involved is he has done a mentored study program with students, as well as Fuqua Consulting Client Practicum. And he's helped source different projects for students through that. We also have an alumni who works for Phoenix Rising Football Club, and he's also sourced a project with the Fuqua Consulting Client Practicum. We have Duke alumni that work at Duke Athletics, and they have been huge proponents of helping us figure out what we want to do within the industry and also sourcing projects for us through Duke Athletics. We even have a ton of Duke alumni in the media and entertainment and music space. Mentioned Demon Weekend, which was huge. And again, we have our guest speaker for the music, media, and entertainment cohort coming up. And then again, the executive at NBC Universal, which is a Fuqua alum, and she will be coming here in a few months as well. So really great support from alumni.
Yeah, and I'd just add, we also benefit from a lot of local alumni.
Mm-hmm.
So before I started at Fuqua, I was with a company called Wasserman, which is a sports marketing and talent agency with a couple offices, but a big office in Raleigh. and I met a Fuqua alumni there, JB Lebanetsky, and he has been a huge asset to this club and to this school. So he basically came in and helped us start the FSBC, which was, you mentioned, the Fuqua Sports Business cohort, coming to campus, at 7:30 in the morning last year, twice a month, and really teaching students about what Wasserman does and what it means to work in sports business. So a little less about, career pathing, but more tactical skills, what it means to actually work in sports, and a lot of case studies on actual client work that they did. So, we've really found that alumni have a really strong bond back to the school, and they really want to help students out. So,
yeah, I'm actually doing a mentored study that JD again helped source through Wasserman this term, and he has been a great asset. So there's tons of opportunities for alumni to give back. Experiential learning is huge at Fuqua, and there are so many opportunities to get involved in these industries before you do your interview, so you can really learn about media, entertainment, and sports. And we definitely have our alumni to thank for that.
Yeah, and I'd just build off that. So just to tie back a couple of the different things. So we've mentioned a few things. So obviously there's a lot of classroom work that can be specific to the industry, speakers and whatnot. But Tanya's talked about mentored studies. So these are typically with local companies. You get course credit, and it's more to get that hands-on experience. And so I think that's a great program. The FCCP, so that's the more of the consulting projects, similar, but you're working with a team from Fuqua. And I thought it was really cool because one of our, actually a couple of our club members, when they worked with Phoenix Rising, the soccer team last year, they put forth a recommendation for a new ticketing model, and that was actually adopted over the summer and put into place on their website. And then there's also an opportunity to do independent studies with different professors. I'm actually doing one right now with our advanced corporate strategy professor who's been studying CEO activism. And we're looking right now at social activism in the NFL and how that may have impacted or not impacted the NFL's revenue. So a lot of really cool opportunities to get involved. A lot of it funnels through the club, but it's not just necessarily in the classroom or listening to speakers. So
yeah, and speaking of classes, Fuqua actually has a sports business class. I don't know if any of y'all knew that. I didn't know that whenever I was a prospect, but it is taught by our associate director, Dr. Kevin White, and the assistant AD, Nina King. And Nina King has also been really great. She came to speak to our symposium that we had at the beginning of the year. She is also sourcing a project for students around a selection committee, which helps figure out which teams are going to go to the tournament in women's basketball. So really great opportunities again, and I think we're really proud and happy that we selected Fuqua and the opportunities that have risen from coming here.
Cool. Looks like we've got a couple of questions. One from Brian. I'm interested in sports marketing and analytics. Would my interest fit more into MES or the marketing club, or both? I think the quick answer is, both. Like you don't have to limit yourself to one club. We actually have a lot of first years that are involved in both, on the cabinet of both our club and the marketing club.
I can definitely take this on. I'm on the cabinet of both, so I can speak to this because I have an advertising background, recruited in marketing in addition to sports, and I think doing both was tremendously helpful. And my internship at Nike was actually in sports marketing, doing analytics, so it was the perfect combination of all my career interests, and doing both clubs was extremely useful. Our good friends are actually the co-presidents of the marketing club, Tom Peacock and Mackenzie Beaver. They're amazing. They're incredible partners for us. We actually hosted Christy Nelson together. It was a part of the Career Messages series, but they were completely supportive, broadcasted out to their club, and it was an awesome event. And there's so much overlap. So even with recruiting, because CPG companies typically follow a more traditional recruiting cycle and sports is more just in time, there's such an opportunity to do both. And again, tremendous overlap in recruiting. Both actually definitely helps your chances in landing an internship with marketing and sports. So I would recommend definitely doing both.
And, just to, again, drive home that Wasserman relationship, too. So, I mean, they're a sports marketing company. They hire people from Fuqua. They're on campus. They're super supportive of us. So it's a good way to, get to know what they do. And I guess less of a pressure, not necessarily committing to that role or that company, but still kind of getting, a good way to figure out if it's the right thing for you.
We have really great marketing and analytics faculty. There are awesome analytics courses and awesome marketing courses that would help for sports marketing in particular. We have pricing, we have forecasting, we have decision models, we have business analytics, all really great classes on top of the clubs to help support launching your career in this industry.
Yeah, I actually took a class in the fall from Professor Gavin Fitzsimmons called Consumer Behavior, really analyzing why consumers, why do they make the decisions that they do. And one of the really cool parts of that class was an alumni came in who works for a NASCAR team, and they wanted to leverage the students to help them think through, how do they potentially market and gain new fans. And so we had to work as groups and come up with different unique ideas.
Awesome.
And target really like different consumer behavior patterns about why they react the way they do and how we could potentially attract them to NASCAR. So another cool way that school, alumni, and interests all really interlink together.
Definitely. Another question that we had was, you say that. Read that number one out loud.
Thanks, Rich. So Rich was complimenting my mustache. So for Movember, only got a couple more days left, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then
Y'all have raised quite a bit of money.
yeah,
right?
we've another just I guess at school there's probably 25 of us at this point that are walking around with these things on, but trying to raise money and awareness for men's health. So it's been fun. Definitely a lot of weird looks, but it's almost over. So thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. And then the second part of that question is: have any MES members landed jobs for post grad?
Mm-hmm.
If so, can you mention where? Yeah. So I think the quick answer is yes. And again, it kind of just depends probably on your experience that summer, and then what you want to do long term. I know I can speak for myself. So with the NFL, had an awesome internship, and definitely a lot of mutual interest there. I think the way they work in some of the other sports industry companies is they don't necessarily give out offers a year in advance.
Mm-hmm.
They operate so lean that they don't always know necessarily what their resources will be. So in my situation, I feel good about the fact that in another couple months or so, we'll start to have conversations about full-time roles. And I think that's the case for a lot of maybe the sports. I know from a consulting standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
people do have offers. I can think of a couple people at Deloitte that do, they know what they're doing, they know where they'll be. But I think for maybe some of the sports roles, it's, not necessarily knowing a year out.
So a lot of Fuqua students had done an excellent job with their internships, and they have to make the decision actually by November 30th whether they'll take the full-time opportunity. So we're not sure which of our peers are taking it yet, but we have a ton of people that have already confirmed that they're going back to Nike. We had 7 interns overall, and they're going back. So that has been awesome. We had people that worked for various sports teams, including the Denver Broncos, the Washington Nationals. And I know our peer with the Broncos, I believe he does have something of an offer to go back. They have to kind of figure out the details of that. But like Rob mentioned, with sports, it's a little trickier just because it is very much just in time. But one of our peers, Seth Hansen, he is going to go back into consulting. And that was more a traditional cycle, but he still has that long-term goal of going into sports. We have a couple of alum and actually a current second year that's going into consulting, and she's going to be working in the media and sports space in Los Angeles. So that's another avenue as well. Should we kind of talk about our other peers, what internships they had, what
Sure.
companies
Yeah, let's
that
do
are
it.
relevant?
Yeah.
We had people that were also at Under Armour. So we've done a really great job of building out sports retail companies and our relationships with them. This is the first year actually Nike has come to campus and is recruiting for finance and operations roles. So we are really excited about that. Rob can talk a little bit about sports leagues and a couple of the internships that we had in that space.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things we had this summer was we had people at leagues and then teams within the leagues.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we came back to school, we were able to compare different experiences. So mentioned I was at the NFL. We had somebody else at the Broncos. We had another student who was at Major League Baseball, and then
Mm-hmm.
another student at the Nationals. So definitely a nice mix between leagues and teams. One thing I don't think we've mentioned yet too is we did have a club member who was at Activision working on the Overwatch League. So we mentioned that there's now a gaming and esports cohort. So there's a group at school dedicated to knowing more of the business side of esports. There is still, I think, the aspect of actually putting together tournaments and playing together. But that's one that I think we'll continue to see a lot of interest from incoming and prospective students. And we do have relationships there with Riot Games and then Epic Games, which is Fortnite, actually only a couple miles away in Cary. So that's another really exciting one, and one that I think will continue to grow.
And speaking of like entertainment and sports, there are so many avenues y'all can pursue and that we can pursue. Like we mentioned, the agency side, we've had associations with Wasserman. We even had a student on our cabinet that worked at Madison Square Garden and got to kind of see that event planning type of space. And I think, what did Zach do? Was it finance or strategy ops? Or?
Yeah, I think he was doing a rotational program. So I think he got I think he got exposure to a lot of different things. So yes, a lot of different parts of that operation, which was pretty cool.
And we have a recent graduate. He interned at Sony Music Entertainment. We have a ton of people that are recruiting for Disney and various media and music companies, including Spotify. Spotify actually reached out this summer to start fostering a relationship with Fuqua as well. So they are an awesome music company that we're starting to build relationships with, and I know a ton of students are recruiting for that as well. So we've had a lot of hands in a lot of companies, and I think that it's only going to continue to grow.
Yeah, and just one other thing I would add too, a Fuqua student that graduated last year thought about going back into consulting, but has since decided to start his own company. And I think it's a really unique value proposition. So with a lot of college athletes, they've spent most of their life doing that sport, going to practice and competing. And then for those that aren't going professional, they have to shift their mindset. And so he started a company and he's piloting with the football program here at Duke, about how do we start to educate some of the players on, making that transition, doing a lot of resume workshops, doing some company visits, talking to employers, and then he's going to try to roll it out to other programs throughout the U.S. So that's something I think really unique from both a sports business and entrepreneur perspective.
And one more thing, we have a ton of cabinet members that are involved in various industries, not only media, entertainment, and sports, so we can always leverage their experience as well. We have one that is I'm not sure if it's asset management or it's not banking, but Bonnie, it's
I think it's a boutique investment bank.
There you go. We have also people that are going into consulting, mentioned that before, people that worked in sports retail, but kind of from a more outdoors landscape. We have a cabinet member, Fia. She worked on brands, I think it was like Columbia, and I forgot the parent company name, but we have a ton of...
VF Corp.
VF Corp, there you go. So really awesome experience and engagement from students, even on our cabinet. So if y'all do have any questions after this session, feel free to reach out to us on our MES OrgSync portal. I believe y'all do have access for that. And even if y'all want to just email Rob or I, my email address is Tanya, Tanya.assar, ASSAR @duke.edu.
And mine is John, JOHN.Belk, BELK @duke.edu. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope this was informative. Like we said, we feel like we're creating something special here. We want Fuqua to be the place for media and entertainment and sports. So we hope to have you here either next year or in the future.
Definitely. Thank you.